Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Rita. How are you doing today?
Fine. How are you, Marta?
I'm fine too. I'm very pleased to be here today with you, share some experience with everybody, and learn too, right?
Yes, so am I. Thank you very much. I thank SBS for the invitation. And it's really a pleasure being here and having a chance to talk and to share some of our challenges, in fact, right?
Yes, actually, it's a challenge for everyone. It's a challenge for us too.
Yeah.
And our talk today is going to be divided into parts. I will start by telling a little bit about my experience and everything I've been doing so far. And then Rita is going to take the second part about bilingual education, right?
Yes.
Actually, our presentation today is about let's make the difference. But I would like to say that we've already made the difference with everything what's going on in this world and all the efforts we have been doing to give our best to our students and change the education, right? The educational setting.
Sure.
So, what I'd like to start today talking a little bit about I had some insights during this period, and I'd like to share with you. And what I've thought so far is what's going on now. Is this process an individual issue or a collective concern? And all the time I was teaching, I always had this in my mind that there was not anymore me as a teacher, even though we are already changing our behavior, our posture in the classroom as a mediator. But now we are facing a different scenario. And when we talk about the identity, the teacher identity has changed, right? Because we need also to learn with all this process. We are now working together as one, teachers and students getting together
Yeah.
and having a new experience in this digital scenario, right? So what came to my mind that I would like to share with you is that for me, it means a total revision of the relationship of the individuals with their social and cultural environment. We have changed everything. The anxieties, the fears, the challenges, everything now is on our plate. And we have like to chew everything. It's too much to chew at the same time, as the British people say sometimes.
Yeah.
It's too much, but at the same time, what a unique experience we have, right? So that's something I would like to start with. And what I what I thought about it, that we have to revisit the language, to see what is identity and interculturality, but in a different sense as interculturality with this digital world. How to build knowledge and develop competence in the pandemic. Well, how to do it? On one hand, we have the content. On the other hand, we have the skills. And together, we need to deliver something to our students who are on the other side of the screen. But we can't think the same way we used to think, because from now on, we are getting on board of a different experience. It's a new journey for education and how to prepare ourselves for this digital world. As we talk about bilingualism, and Rita is going to talk a little bit later, there is always I, me, you, and us. To look at myself as identity, to look at the other, and together build something together. The same happens in this sense, because we need to start, or we have to develop different skills like understanding each other. Okay, we take for granted because it's already something we need to do it, but all the emotional competence that we have been talking about was time to put in use. We need to have them now. It's not theory anymore. It's not a project. It's something that needed to be all the time permeating our lessons. And through it, having meaningful communication. And this is something that always called my attention. Actually, all my graduation was based on pragmatics and language and the communication that we need to use in this digital scenario. So what is communication? Because when we are, for example, in a physical, we are in a classroom, we have all the tools we need. We are together. We can see what's going on with our students. Now we are in a different perspective, right? So if you could go on to the next slide, what I realized is that we need to focus on the process of delivering the content. How is going to be this content delivered, taking into account all these different and these issues we face with technology, bad internet, students on the other side, they are not paying attention, they are just bored but not mind. We are totally stressed because we are facing a new scenario. We need to follow our program, our planning, but I realized that I need to change a little bit my point of view as in terms of language. So I remember that once I learned about when you set up any business, when you set up any project, we need always to look at different sides of it. So to see my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's what I see as a reflective teaching. Every time I left the classroom, I tried to see myself, what could I have done better? What were my strengths? What was the weaknesses? What I need to improve? What were the opportunities I had to be better? And also, what were the harms I had when I was teaching? It was a kind of a moment in my life when I felt so insecure because it was everything new for me. But I've learned so much. I've learned from my students, and I could realize that when you are teaching in this new scenario, you need to work together. The students, especially the youngs, they have a lot of experience in technology. So I need to look at a different perspective. And I attended once a lecture, and this was very important for me. Actually, it's a very nice exercise, but I'm going to give you just a bit of it. And something like this. I'll show you a picture now, right? And I ask you, what is this? And when you look at it, you can give wings to your imagination and think, is a dinosaur? Is a fire flame? What could it be? And when you see it, you realize that it was something totally different. I think it's the same way that happens when you are teaching in this new scenario. So what you see is what you see. You look at your students. Are they the same way you had them in the classroom? What kind of skills, what kind of social emotional skills do you need to develop to be more sensitive to them? And then there were 4 questions I'd like to share with you. And I'm really trying to put myself in your shoes, because empathy, I think, is the best name for us teachers at this moment. So how can I promote, how to promote social emotional learning? How can we work together for problem solving skills? It's not just one side, is a 2 ways. We cannot do it alone, but we need to develop some different skills as teachers to observe what's not really clear. Another question I asked myself, how to boost mutual understanding? How can I say something? Because look, we are talking about language. We are talking about my intention to explain, my intention to deliver some content, and how is my student on the other side receiving it? Not to have a miscommunication. Because we think because we are delivering a content, the student is learning, we know that doesn't happen. Maybe the tone of my voice, the way I act, the way I look might interfere in this process. Another thing that helped me so much was that even though we are sharing a screen, it's not one size fits all. We need really to develop some skills. We need really to develop some skills to see and our students, how they are receiving, how are they interacting, especially because motivation is one topic, one issue that has to be all the time in our lessons. And next, how to foster understanding. Okay, so we need a good rapport. So let's go through a point of view I'm thinking about, the meta-linguistic awareness. Because we're talking about delivering a content, we are talking that we have our body, we have our mind, you have our voice, and we need to be aware of all this when you are interacting with our students. Sometimes the student is just there doing like this, and we have to see, okay, this student is bored. So immediately we need to change something in our teaching to help the students to be again with us, to be motivated. It's not an easy task to be done, and it demands a lot of sensitivity. We need to be very aware of what's going on. So I always thought about the non-verbal communication. What you see, how do you perceive the student, and how can you how can you plan or find tools to make your lesson even better? Okay, so all in all, I think that these are the skills that they are required for all of us, the students, the teachers, to recognize the details that needs to that give you tips, hints to change the way of your teaching, or to not to be not that they can predict what you're going to do. Okay, so continuing about this, I'd like if she can help me. Is the empathy matters? Why? Um, I think that's the moment when we do need to think about empathy, because as a teacher, we are required to wear many hats. When I say many hats, it's using all different skills, all different attitudes, perceiving what's going on, creating and facilitating the competence that the technology gives it to us. But we need to work with the empathy. We need really to know that now, as I started from the beginning, me, I, you, and us together cannot be different if we want really to have this new area of technology. And I think that the main point for me is that we teachers can step outside and try to have internalize what has been doing in order to reinvent ourselves for this new world. And I will talk now, Rita will follow this topic, especially when you talk about bilingual education. That then we need a lot of tools and a lot of skills to make things even better, right? So guys, thank you very much, and Rita will take over my speech.
Oi, Rita, Marta, tudo bem com vocês? Rita,
Tudo.
seu microfone tá mudo, a gente não tá ouvindo o que você tá falando. Acho que você esqueceu, você pôs no mudo enquanto a Marta falava e não dava mais para te ouvir.
Eu mudo para não atrapalhar a Marta. Agora
Eu
já
tava achando
abri,
aqui, Rita,
ok.
perguntando no meu... Falei, o que aconteceu comigo?
Desculpe interromper,
Okay,
gente.
so it's all. No, thank you. It's all ready
Ok,
now.
bye bye.
So what we are
Oh,
going.
Rita,
Bye, thank you.
if you could give me just
So
5 minutes
yes,
to wrap up this in Portuguese, maybe I can help. Okay?
yeah, go ahead.
So,
Go ahead. Yeah,
falei
sure.
muito inglês, mas eu gostaria de colocar essa minha parte da apresentação sobre um olhar bem empático em relação ao professor, a todo esse momento que nós estamos vivendo, e propor, como eu fiz comigo e com os professores que trabalham comigo, uma reflexão sobre o que essa nova fase que nós estamos vivendo da área digital, como que nós podemos nos reinventar. E eu acho que isso é não sei se a Rita concorda comigo, é uma questão muito particular de identidade mesmo, quanto professor, né? E
Sim.
quanto que a gente pode nos surpreender nesse processo de angústia do docente, né? É uma angústia do docente.
Com certeza.
Né? Então, eu só para fechar essa parte em português, porque pode ter professores que não são da área da língua inglesa, que também podem se fazer uso dessa reflexão minha, quanto que nós já nos superamos em relação a essa nova fase e nos estarmos abertos a nos perguntar aonde é que eu posso melhorar? Eu tive, por exemplo, o caso de uma professora que ela entrou tanto em desespero que ela falou, não consigo. Porque a internet cai, o aluno pergunta, então eu acho que a gente tem que ter muito cuidado dessa questão da linguagem não verbal do seu aluno.
Sim.
Né? Ou seja, qual que seja a sala de aula, bilíngue, monolíngue, história, geografia, independente da matéria, mas o professor necessita realmente desenvolver algumas habilidades de ordem não verbal. E ele mesmo, na ansiedade dele, não transparecer isso para o aluno dele, porque realmente é uma coisa que a gente sabe que, como nós estamos num plano, né? Num plano e não no tridimensional, isso tem muito impacto no aprendizado, certo? Então, agora, Rita, it's your turn now, baby.
Okay, so thank you all for being here and sharing with us all your experience. Also, I see many comments in the chat, and please, we are going to try to talk about everything that you've been pointing out here. But remember, this is effectively going to be bilingual, especially from now on. So I have my PowerPoint presentation in Portuguese, and I'll be discussing a few points with you in English, and my discussion is basically focused on bilingual education, especially when we teach emergent bilinguals, when we talk about teaching early childhood, and we are not supposed to be speaking Portuguese most of the time. We are supposed to be encouraging the production of the second language in the classroom. This is more challenging than teaching any other thing online. Because when we are teaching, we are not just teaching the language. This is very important for us to have very clear when we are talking about bilingual education. It's not the language. It's not English or Spanish or French or any other language. We are talking about education and not talking about teaching the language. But when we go into like the roots of what we've been doing in the classroom, we go, for example, to Piaget, and Piaget talks a lot about the importance of observing. What have we been doing with our classes in order to encourage observation instead of just trying to make people get content? Observing is a tool for learning. Observing is, in fact, a scientific way of looking at the world. And this is something that we should bring into our planning. This is something that we should encourage our kids to be looking around, observing what they have around, and our classes should be starting from what they can observe instead of from content that is in our books or in our yearly plans, because all those things, they are less important now. The most important now is to give children a chance of learning first about the child itself. So learning about our own is important. So especially now that we have lost so many things that we enjoyed and we cannot do anymore. It is essential that we give these kids a chance of talking about how they feel, about what they can do in the place of those things that they used to do and that they are not allowed to now due to the pandemic. Piaget used to talk a lot about the importance of individual investigation and trying, learning by trying. So how can we make people, especially, and I always talk about young children because those are the ones who are more dependent on guidance, and the guidance cannot come completely from the teacher. The guidance has been coming also from the families, from the parents. And due to that, we need to establish a very close partnership with the families. If they don't understand what we are doing, we cannot go on with our jobs. So establishing a very close relationship with the families, letting them know what we've been doing in class, this is something that will guarantee that they become partners of ours. And if they become our partners, they are definitely going to help us a little bit more at home, so that the work that we propose can definitely work better. Piaget also talks about how can we as mediators help kids discover their intrinsic motivation. So what do we think can motivate what can motivate our kids in a moment when they cannot visit their grandparents, they cannot go to mall, they cannot go to the movies, they cannot play in the playground, they can't go to school and see their friends from school. So giving them, this is why, probably why our schools have been insisting so much in providing synchronous classes, real-time classes. This is so hard for us as teachers because the kids have a very short time for concentration. We are gonna lose them very easily. They are not going to pay attention to long synchronous classes. They are not going to pay attention to long videos that we record. So everything has to be very well planned in short, I call them episodes. I call them like, just like a series that we watch in Netflix or any other thing. Very short lessons, and every time we finish our lesson we can finish with something that will make them curious for what is coming on the next day, and this is going to make them feel a little more motivated to come back to our classes. So we should also, according to Piaget, guarantee that the kids have a chance to develop motor coordination, verbal and mental skills. So especially thinking of early childhood, this is extremely important. But then remember, you plan a game for motor development and you send it home, or you explain it in your video lesson. Doesn't matter if your lesson is synchronous or asynchronous. When the kids are home and the parents have to monitor their activities, then we are going to have parents thinking that, oh, this teacher is only asking my son to play. Well, first, playing is a tool for learning in early childhood. In fact, playing is a tool for learning in life. But parents need to understand the pedagogical purposes, because there is intentionality in all the activities that we propose. So what I've been recommending to all the schools that I work with is that teachers either write, or if it's even better if they can record short videos explaining to the families the intentionality of the main activities that they send home. Because if parents understand that, I asked the kids, like 3-year-old kids, to play a game where they should crawl and jump and walk fast and walk slowly, and like movement, different sorts of movement. It's not just a game. There is a lot of pedagogy behind it. And if we don't explain to the families, they are going to think that it's just a game. And if it's just a game, it's not necessarily important. So the key to establish a close relationship with the families, especially for very young kids, it is really telling the parents why we are asking them to do such activities. All the activities that we propose for home, for being done with the families should understand at least a little bit of the principles that are behind the activities, because then they will probably give their kids more support. They are probably they are probably going to cooperate with the kids and cooperate with us teachers. We cannot do all the job on our own, right? And then again, Piaget says that we should encourage cooperation and group work. Okay, and how are we going to do it if they are not in our classrooms, if we are not close to them? Depending on the LMS system that you use, you can join them in breakout rooms. If you're using Zoom, if you're using WebEx and another couple of uh, platforms for meetings, you can have them in breakout rooms. But we cannot have 3-year-olds in breakout rooms without someone to supervise them. So the idea that some of the schools that I work with have been following is to really organize short meetings, and one of the parents organizes the meetings with other kids from other parents, and they interact with the families when the families can. And this is very important for socializing. We can do most of our teaching without having breakout rooms for little ones, because of course it doesn't work if you don't have like helpers who can be one in each room supervising the kids. But it's important for us to know and to be aware of what we've been doing properly and what we've been missing because of the situation. Maybe everything that is related to socializing is the point where we've been missing the most. And then when we go back, we are going to have to find our tools to recover the things that we haven't been able to do at present. But we know that when we talk about bilingual education, we don't have anything specific for any second language of curriculum in early childhood and in years 1 to year 5. So whatever we choose to do should be based on what the BNCC mentions for Portuguese. And in Portuguese, the NCC is organized into 5 fields of experience. And these 5 fields of experience, they really take care of identity issues and relationship. They take care of motor coordination and physical development. They also take care of all the language skills concerning listening and speaking and imagination, which is so rich and so important in early childhood. Also, the NCC will have this other field of experience where the kids have this mixture of science, math, and arts. And we go to the final one where you have like time and space and amount, and this is again science and math together. When we plan our activities and we think of these 5 fields of experience, what are we going to ask our kids to observe? How are we going to ask our kids to interact with the content? online. So through a language which they do not command properly yet. So this is the challenge. And the challenge we can solve if we think that early childhood is the time where executive functions are really being developed. From the time they are born up to 10 years old, this is the most important time for the development of, for example, inhibitory control, which will give them the chance of focusing on what they want to focus in spite of all the elements that we have that can take our attention away. Also, this is the time where they develop their working memory, their ability to keep something in mind because they need it, because they are going to use it. And this is the time to make them develop flexibility, cognitive flexibility. And cognitive flexibility is this ability that bilinguals develop very easily because they are like talking to you in English and then someone passes by e eles falam alguma coisa em português and they come back and continue in English because they have this ability to really focus on something but have the flexibility to switch into another language, to another person, and go back to what they were doing naturally. And this has to be really emphasized. And our remote teaching has been really a challenge for us in the development of executive functions, because when the kids are talking to you, they have parents passing by, talking to them, asking them to focus, asking them to pay attention. All those things are, we should be looking at those things as opportunities, as things that we are gaining instead of only things that we've been losing. Of course, we've been losing a lot, but we've been developing other skills that we didn't have before the pandemic and that we didn't know. Nobody knew exactly how to do a lesson, how to plan and how to present a lesson, how to edit a video, how to record a lesson and be clear to the kids. So we need to really focus on the progress that the kids have been making and the progress that we as teachers have also been making in terms of learning how to use digital tools and overcome our shame and our lack of confidence when we would, who would imagine oneself like recording and uploading videos to YouTube for the students to be watching, for families to be watching. And once we upload something, the world may be watching us. So we need to be a little more careful with the language that we use. We need to be a little more careful with the ideas that we propose. We are not protected by the walls of our classroom anymore. The digital world does not have walls. So information just flies anywhere it can go. And this is very important for us to also see that these very young learners have been facing an experience that none of us have. We've been facing this as professionals. They've been facing this as very young learners. And this can really make them better learners if we guarantee that we offer them the best learning opportunities at this moment. And the best that they can do is learn how to learn. Because when we learn how to learn, we do not depend on other people for us to learn. Of course, we depend on experts. Of course, we depend on teachers, but we can go after the things that we want to learn. So this is very important that we plant the very small seeds of autonomous learning by this time. And if we ask our kids, if we finish our classes asking them, how do you think that this virus came up to be? Why don't you talk to your family and share ideas? This is investigation. These are the people that they have at the moment, those who are sharing the home with them. But they can go, they can talk, and this can be something about the pandemic, but this can also be something very simple, like, do you have plants home? What do you think those plants need to survive? Talk to your family about what they think, what they know about how plants survive. And then tomorrow, when we meet, we are going to share everything that we discover. So you are the researchers now, you are the little scientists. Go after this information. If you have time, if you have a chance, call your grandparents, call your uncles, your aunts, call friends. If mommy and dad can help you with those phone calls, and then gather all the information you can about how plants live and how plants survive. And then tomorrow in our class, we are going to share what you found out. So when we do this kind of thing, we are having them develop like a focus because they know that they have a focus. We are going to help them develop something in their working memory because they have to hear those things and remember them and bring them to you on the following class. And we are also giving them a chance of being very flexible cognitively about the language that they use, because probably to most of those people, they are going to talk in Portuguese. But when they come back to you, you are going to encourage the discussion in the second language of instruction. And this is very rich for them because they will learn how to start asking you for the things that they don't know. Probably they know water. And if you ask them, what do plants need to survive? And they may say, they need the sun. They might not be able to say the sunlight, but they may be able to say they need the sun, they need the light, or they need the water. They need water. And this is already rich enough for you to start building on what they bring and providing them with the language that they don't have, and encouraging them to learn more and to learn on their own. This is something very important that we are all learning from this pandemic. We all learned so many things from like tutorials from YouTube, and we've been searching for so much information to help us go further. This is also happening to the kids. And if we plan our classes in a way that the kids can go and can help us, bringing information into class, and then we transform that information into the lesson that we are supposed to be giving to them, this is going to be much richer. So remember that playing is the key for learning in early childhood. And playing is something that teenagers would also enjoy. What changes is the game, but they enjoy playing. So if we try to gamify a little bit what we've been doing, and by gamifying, I don't mean playing true and false, I don't mean playing memory games only, but I mean creating challenges through which they are going to go after the answers in teams. And we don't need to make those teams competitive. We can give like each team a little part of a challenge, but the victory is of everybody's, because my part of the challenge will be together with your part of the challenge. And when we all get together, then we are going to have the solution for the thing that was proposed. I watched once in a school in Salvador. The teacher was developing a project, and the starting question was, how do you think the water comes to our house? And then nobody really knew where to start from. And the kids said, oh, it comes from the rain. And then another team said, no, it comes from Sabesp, because I don't remember the equivalent to Sabesp in Rio, but the water treating station in Rio. And then they started talking so many things about water, and we had like one team One group was working on the study of the water cycle. The other team was working on the study of pollution and how the water can become clean again if it is depolluted. And then another team was studying how the water comes from rivers or from the ocean or where it comes from and how it comes home. And together, they understood the importance of all the water cycle and all the treatment stations and how the water would be to their places. But the challenge was to the group, to the whole group, not to one team. Each team had a little part of the answer. And this is something that we can do with very simple themes, as the one I mentioned about the plants. So we can have like one team studying how to plant and the why do we need seeds or plants that we plant without seeds? The other team can be studying the water and the importance of the water, the importance of the light, and different teams studying little pieces of information. And when they share, you have this big product that belongs to everyone because everyone was important in the process. When COVID came, all our dreams for teaching 2020 were over because we didn't know where to start from. But then, because nobody was prepared, and this is not an excuse, because when we got our diplomas from the universities, we were not prepared either. No university prepared anybody to go into class and teach. It is teaching taught us how to teach. Observing other teachers and facing difficulties and talking about the problems is what made us learn how to teach. So when we go and analyze what we need and what we have and what we need to develop, then we discover the real meaning of competence. We know so many things, but we are not competent enough to use all of them because we know that there are tools. We know how to use some tools. We are able to use those tools, but when we come into this jumping into using those resources and making a powerful lesson. This is where we feel that we are fragile, and this is where we need to develop. The problem is that skills we can teach and competences we cannot. Competence is from inside, right? We teach skills, but skills do not make us competent. Competency is something that we have to develop on our own. And now we've been facing like the law telling us so many things to do and being flexible in some others, the families expecting things, and the schools being pressured by the families who want result. And there we are, teachers, trying to make life work, trying to make learning happen with the students. And what has been happening now in the schools is most of the schools have been combining synchronous and asynchronous lessons in order to make people learn. But remember, learning is only going to happen if there is this inner desire to learn. So the focus for us now is not really on what we should be teaching, but on making people wish to learn, desire learning. If they want to learn, they will learn anything. But we should be focusing on their desire first. And why is that so important now? We have this substance in our body, which is named dopamine. And dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is produced by the brain, and it's responsible for everything that gives us pleasure. And when we have a high production of dopamine, then we move more happily, we are more enthusiastic, our memory is better, our attention and our pleasure is higher in everything that we do, because dopamine is the substance that will make us feel it is connected to the sensation of pleasure in the body. And then we haven't been having anything that gives us pleasure, especially the kids. So since dopamine is connected to motivation and the production of dopamine is low because everything that gives us pleasure has been taken away. And think of the kids. The kids do not know why they've been losing so much. They do not really understand why they cannot go to the playground, why they cannot go to school. There is this thing, there is a virus. They don't even have a clear idea of what a virus is. And because of this thing named virus, they cannot do anything and they are bored. And if they are bored, then motivation is low, and if motivation is low, there's no learning. And if we find a key to motivation now, they are going to be better learners. So the key, in my opinion, is listening to them. If we listen to them quite often, no matter how old they are, they need to talk. And this is why we've been participating in so many lives. We've been watching people that we never thought we would be watching, because we need to listen to people and to be heard. So it is very important that in all of our classes, we give them a chance of talking a little bit, and then the language is not important. It is what they have to say that is important. And from what they say, you make a class. From what they say, you transform the most important things in English, and you give them some tools so that they can share some of their thoughts in English. But remember, emotion comes first. And why does emotion comes first? And this is Maslow's research on learning. And he says that the first thing we need to guarantee in order to learn things is air, food, water, sleep. We are not going to talk about sex when we are talking about kids, but they need to have their physical needs fulfilled. And if they have their physical needs fulfilled, then they need to feel secure. And if they feel secure, if they feel that they belong to the place where they are, then we go a little bit up on this pyramid, and they should feel that they are loved, feel that they belong, feel that they are friends, feel that asynchronous class is comfortable for them. Then we go into STEAM, and self-STEAM confidence is going to be built. And only when we go to the top of this pyramid, we have the desire to learn, the desire to be a little bit more than who and what we are at the moment. And learning comes from the top of this pyramid. And then I talk now about teachers, those of you who have been teaching teenagers. Teenagers have been spending all night long talking to their friends. They've been awake during the night. And I have a teenager here home, and I know that I wake up sometimes 2 in the morning, and I listen to him talking to his friends, and they miss each other, and they need to talk to each other. The problem is that on the next day when classes begin, they are falling asleep. And if they are falling asleep, they don't learn. So remember that we need to guarantee physical conditions, and then security, safety conditions, and then love and belonging and self-esteem, so that learning takes place. And then when this happens, we go into bloom. And when we go into bloom, we plan for bilingual education, because we start by planning on the things we want our kids to remember, and then to understand, and then apply. And this is basically the famous PPP from ELT, the presentation, practice, and production, from guided production to free production. But if we stop there, we are only giving them a chance of developing lower order thinking skills. And this is not critical thinking. This is not critical literacy. We need to go into analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And this sounds so complex when we talk about little kids, but it's not. It's really not. When you teach them, like if they learn the parts of the plant and what the plants need to survive, and they understand why the plant needs sunlight and water, why we need to water the plant often or not overwater the plant also. And then they can take care of a little plant. Or plant a little seed, even if it's beans, which is the easiest thing for them to plant. But if they can, until the moment when they plant, they are working on lower order thinking skills. But then, if we analyze with them, why do you think we have the air is much nicer for us to breathe when we go into parks where we have many trees or when we go into the countryside? Why do you think the air is better for us? Then we are going into higher order thinking skills and they are analyzing. And if we tell them, okay, so what is going to happen if we continue cutting the trees, for example, in the Amazon, or if we live in a place where there's no tree at all. And they analyze the consequences, they evaluate the consequences, and we tell them, what can we do in order to reduce the problem we've been facing with cutting the trees? Of course, they are going to come up with very simple proposals. We can plant more. We shouldn't cut. All these things are valid for 3 years old, for 4 years old. When they grow older, they will come up with better solutions. But we are here talking about a real problem, and discussing this real problem is going to need a lot of guidance concerning language, because we have to teach them, for example, maybe we could, maybe we should, or maybe or we must. We have to give them the chance so that they can propose something. They will need a couple of words only, but they have the basis, but they go into higher order thinking skills. And this is the most important thing that we can be teaching to them now. And then remember, yeah.
There's a very good thing you said now, that in this aspect, they can go to their parents to help them now.
Exactly, exactly. Then for all these pyramids, they need, now in our remote learning, they need the parents more than ever. And especially here, just to conclude, Glasser has this other concept. Those guys like pyramids, so we can have like groups of pyramids talking about learning. But when we read, the learning rate is very low. When we listen, it's a little higher. When we see it better, a little bit better, when we listen, but we can also see, for example, in presentations like this. But when we discuss, when we do, and especially when we teach each other, that's where learning takes place. So pay attention that from the top to the middle of this pyramid, up to 50%, what we've been having here is very passive learning. But in the basis of this pyramid, where learning is really strong, this is active learning, because you discuss, you do, you teach, you share what you know. And this is what we call active learning. So how are we going to plan a lesson in which active learning takes more room than passive learning? How are we going to encourage conversation, questions, having them share, having them do things, having them teach each other what they've been doing? So this is probably something that needs to be a shift in the way we've been developing our lessons. And to finish, make sure you communicate with the families very often, letting them know the objectives, letting them understand what you're doing and why you are proposing the activities. Let them know in advance the materials that they need so that the kids can do the activities, and try to provide activities with the stuff that they have home. And then when we think about the teachers, we have already discussed all those things, but I will just focus on the strategies here. So interact a lot, interrupt your video if you are working asynchronously. Interrupt your video, tell them you're gonna stop the video now. Go stop the video, ask your parents something. When you find the answer, you come back, And we continue. So use strategies to interrupt. Flip your classrooms. Have them do something before tomorrow, before your next day. Invite your colleagues to be guests in your classroom, to appear for a couple of seconds, say hello, share something for a minute, and leave. But this makes things very dynamic, and this makes students more interested in what you know.
Rita, Marta, sorry to interrupt. I just have to let you know we have only 2 minutes left,
Yeah,
okay?
no, that's okay. We are over. So just
Okay.
I will share all the slides with all the presentation with SBS, and then you have a couple of links where you can download this like Bloom's taxonomy for the digital scenario, and you can use it in your lessons. And basically, this is what we have for today. I thank you all for being here, and I thank SBS for the invitation, and I hope we can all overcome all the difficulties we've been facing and go back to anything that is being called the new normal. I hope we learn enough to have another chance of going back to class with more quality. Thank you, Marta.
Actually, I think we'll be back to classrooms better than we were because it was like an intensive course for learning all the social emotional skills. And as Rita told now, it was an experience I had when I was during this semester sending parents WhatsApp messages all the time, and bringing them on board with me was something extremely it was grateful for me because it was a way for the parents to see our work and the challenges that we teachers face during the lessons. So I think that the best is really we need them, and I think they will always look us in a different with different eyes from now on. It's not an easy
Yeah.
task for all of us, and I believe that SBS has done a great job for us to give us the opportunity to share with you some experiences, and we hope that we all learn together, right? So we
Yeah.
have already made a difference, as I told at the beginning. Let's make more difference now. Okay, thank you
Yes,
very much
for
for all
sure.
of us. Thank you, Rita, to be together. We all learning together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Thanks, girls. We're going to finish the live streaming now. But in behalf of SBS, I would like to thank you both from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for participating with us.
We thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
And thanks everybody for joining us and watching this amazing live. Bye bye.